What if the most powerful decisions in history weren't made in throne rooms but in bedrooms? The rise and fall of empires often came down to who fell in love with whom. History books focus on wars and treaties, but rarely on the secret relationships and forbidden romances that actually shaped our world. Welcome to the Crimson Scroll, where today we're uncovering the hidden side of love, power, and politics that changed everything. Before we dive in, hit that like button right now and subscribe to the Crimson Scroll because we bring you the stories they don't teach in school. Trust me, you won't want to miss what's coming next. Let's start with Cleopatra. Everything you think you know is wrong. Ancient writers said she wasn't particularly beautiful. So how did she seduce the two most powerful men in Rome? The answer is intelligence. She spoke 9 languages, studied mathematics and astronomy. When Julius Caesar arrived in Egypt, she had herself smuggled into his quarters rolled in a carpet. When she emerged, she didn't offer beauty. She offered an alliance that would make him the most powerful man alive. Egypt controlled the grain supply feeding Rome. Cleopatra understood Caesar didn't need another pretty face. He needed resources and legitimacy. Their relationship produced a son, Caesarion, who would unite East and West. When Caesar was assassinated, Cleopatra immediately planned her next move. Mark Antony was now one of 3 men controlling Rome. Cleopatra sailed to meet him on a golden barge with purple sails, dressed as Venus, surrounded by servants as Cupids. This wasn't seduction. This was political theater, demonstrating Egypt's wealth. Antony fell under her influence because she offered him resources his rivals couldn't match. Together they had 3 children and ruled for 14 years, planning an empire to rival Rome itself. But Rome declared war. At the Battle of Actium, they were defeated. Rather than be captured, both chose death. Cleopatra used a poisonous asp. With her death, Egypt became Roman, and the age of pharaohs ended. Was Cleopatra a victim of love or a brilliant strategist? She was 21 with no army to match Rome's legions. Her only weapons were intelligence and alliances. She nearly created an empire that would have changed Western civilization. Jump forward 1500 years to Eleanor of Aquitaine. At 15, she inherited Aquitaine, covering a third of modern France, making her Europe's most eligible heiress. She married Louis, becoming Queen of France. She went on crusade with him, bringing her own army and ladies dressed as Amazons. Rumors spread of an affair with her uncle. After 15 years and 2 daughters, she got an annulment. 8 weeks later, she married Henry Plantagenet, 11 years younger. 2 years later, Henry became King of England. Eleanor's lands joined with Henry's created the Angevin Empire, stretching from Scotland to the Pyrenees. They controlled more of France than the French king. Eleanor had 8 children including Richard the Lionheart and King John. She governed Aquitaine directly, issued charters, made political decisions independently. When Henry was unfaithful, Eleanor encouraged their sons to rebel, leading to civil war. Henry imprisoned her for 16 years. When Henry died and Richard became king, he freed her immediately. Eleanor ruled England as regent during Richard's crusade. When Richard was captured, she raised his ransom, traveling across Europe in her 70s. When John became king, Eleanor came out of retirement at 80 to defend his lands. She died at 82, having been Queen of France, Queen of England, mother to kings, and one of medieval Europe's most powerful figures. Now let's talk about a love story that changed religion itself. In 1509, Henry VIII became King of England, married to Catherine of Aragon. But Catherine couldn't give him a male heir, only daughter Mary survived. Henry became obsessed with having a son. Then he met Anne Boleyn. She wasn't the most beautiful at court, but she refused to be just a mistress. She would only be his wife. This was incredibly bold. Henry became obsessed, writing passionate love letters that still survive. But there was a problem. Henry was already married and the Catholic Church didn't allow divorce. Henry appealed to the Pope for annulment, arguing his marriage was invalid because Catherine had been married to his brother. But Catherine's nephew was the Holy Roman Emperor who controlled the Pope. The annulment was denied. Henry waited years. And waited too, refusing to sleep with him but maintaining her hold. Finally, Henry took the most radical step imaginable. In 1534, Parliament made Henry supreme head of the Church of England. England had been Catholic for 900 years. Now in one move, Henry broke from Rome and created a new church. Monasteries were dissolved, their wealth seized. People who opposed were executed, including Thomas More. All because Henry wanted Anne Boleyn. They married in 1533 and gave birth to a daughter, Elizabeth. Henry was devastated. By 1536, Henry turned against her. Anne was accused of adultery with 5 men, including her brother, almost certainly false. She was beheaded at the Tower of London at age 30. But the daughter Anne gave birth to became Queen Elizabeth I, one of England's greatest monarchs. The entire Protestant Reformation in England, centuries of Catholic-Protestant conflict, all traces back to Henry's obsession with Anne Boleyn. While Europe dealt with religious revolution, on the other side of the world, the Mughal Empire experienced a love story that produced architectural wonder. In 1612, Prince Khurram met Arjuman Bonu Begum at a royal bazaar. Love at first sight, but court politics meant they waited 5 years to marry. When they finally wed, she became Mumtaz Mahal, jewel of the palace. Their marriage was genuine love, rare among royalty. She accompanied him on military campaigns. They had 14 children in 19 years. When Khurram became Emperor Shah Jahan, he gave Mumtaz the royal seal, making her co-sovereign. She advised on state matters and advocated for the poor. In 1631, Mumtaz died during childbirth at 38. Shah Jahan locked himself away for 8 days. When he emerged, his hair was white, he'd aged dramatically. He declared 2 years of mourning for the entire empire. Then he commissioned the Taj Mahal. He brought architects from across the Islamic world, employed 20,000 workers and 1,000 elephants. Materials came from everywhere. White marble from Rajasthan, jade from China, turquoise from Tibet, lapis lazuli from Afghanistan, sapphires from Sri Lanka. The project took 22 years and bankrupted the empire. The Taj Mahal isn't just a tomb. It's a love letter in marble. Every detail has meaning. The minarets lean outward so in an earthquake they fall away from the tomb. Interior walls have Quran calligraphy and thousands of semi-precious stones in floral patterns. Shah Jahan's tomb breaks the perfect symmetry because his son imprisoned him. When Shah Jahan died in 1666, he was placed next to Mumtaz in the monument he built for her. But this love story had dark political consequences. The enormous cost drained imperial treasury, weakening the empire when it faced threats. Shah Jahan's son believed his father's extravagance weakened Mughal power. Let's talk about Napoleon and Josephine. Napoleon met her in 1795 when he was a young general and she was a widow 6 years older with 2 children. Napoleon fell madly in love. His letters to her are some of history's most passionate. He wrote, "I wake filled with thoughts of you." They married in 1796. Napoleon left 2 days later for the Italian campaign, writing her constantly from the battlefield. But while Napoleon conquered Italy, Josephine had an affair with a young officer in Paris. She rarely wrote back, spent his money lavishly on parties and clothes. Napoleon was devastated when he discovered her infidelities but forgave her because he needed her social connections. Josephine helped him navigate Parisian high society. When Napoleon crowned himself emperor in 1804, he crowned Josephine as empress, establishing a dynasty. But dynasties need heirs. Josephine was in her 40s and couldn't have more children. Despite loving Josephine, in 1810 Napoleon divorced her and married Marie-Louise of Austria, 18 years old, from a powerful royal family. This gave Napoleon legitimacy and an alliance with Austria. Marie-Louise gave birth to a son. Napoleon had his heir. But he never stopped caring about Josephine. When she died in 1814, Napoleon was in exile. His last words before death in 1821 were reportedly about Josephine. Even for someone as powerful as Napoleon, love and politics were inseparable. He loved Josephine, but when she couldn't serve his political needs, he chose ambition. Yet he never forgot her. Are you enjoying these stories? Drop a comment below and tell me which historical figure you want us to cover next. Should we do more royal scandals or ancient civilizations? Your comments help us create content you want to see. These stories teach us several truths. First, throughout history, love has been both tool and weapon in the game of power. Cleopatra used relationships to protect Egypt. Eleanor used marriages to build empires. Henry broke with Rome and changed European history. Shah Jahan nearly bankrupted his empire. Napoleon conquered Europe but couldn't escape his need for an heir. Every person was driven by genuine emotions, but those emotions had massive political consequences. Second, marriage among the powerful was never primarily about love. It was about alliances, territory, legitimacy, and heirs. Royal marriages were diplomatic treaties sealed with weddings. Personal happiness was secondary to political necessity. This doesn't mean love never existed. Some couples genuinely cared for each other. But even when love was present, it operated within strict political constraints. Third, the people who shaped history were human. They fell in love, felt jealousy, passion, and grief. They made decisions based on emotion as much as calculation. Understanding their personal relationships helps us understand why they made choices that still affect us today. The wars, treaties, revolutions, empires, all shaped by human emotions and personal connections as much as grand strategies. Here's my challenge. The next time you read about a historical figure, don't just look at what they did. Look at who they loved, who they married, who they trusted, who they betrayed. Look at their personal relationships because those relationships explain how history unfolded. What historical love story or scandal do you want the Crimson Scroll to investigate next? Victorian-era secrets? Renaissance romances? Political marriages that shaped Asia and Africa? Drop a comment. Your suggestions help us create content you actually want to watch. If you made it this far, you appreciate deep dives into history. Share this video. Send it to friends who love history, post it on social media. The algorithm rewards shares, which means we can create more content for you. Subscribe to the Crimson Scroll with notifications on so you never miss our next investigation into history's hidden truths. Remember, history isn't just kings, battles, and dates. It's human beings navigating love, power, ambition, and survival. It's the same desires and fears we all experience, played out on a grander stage with higher stakes. When you understand that, history stops being boring and becomes the most fascinating story ever told. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video where we uncover more secrets they don't teach in school.